Welcome to this week's episode of Delayed Offside. We touch all the hot topics. Were the Oilers actually a dynasty? Where's Ryan Pilon? Will the Habs take it to Game 7 and go all the way to the Stanley Cup Final? Why do you hate what Sunjay says on Twitter? We'll cover all this in this week's episode of Delayed Offside. Delayed Offside! All right, welcome to this episode. We're gonna hit some stuff here off the bat. Just remember to like, subscribe, and so forth. As much as it sounds weird to say that all the time, apparently we're supposed to do it. Before Ryan took off, he gave us a bunch of notes before he bailed on today's episodes of how we're supposed to talk, what order we're supposed to talk about things. He's a little bit of a prima donna. We still love him, but it's just the chance like now we can call him out without reprieve, right? Like he can't edit this episode or do anything, so we can just say, we've said what you told us to say, Ryan, so we hope you're happy with the analytics of this episode because we know you don't care about the eye test at all. So.
Well, he got the intern to send him some M&Ms, and he wanted all the red ones out of them, and there was one red one in there, so that's why he's not in it. He just wanted blue and white just for the Leafs, but there was one red one stuck in, and he's not recording now.
Just hearing him swearing, going, "This crap never happened to me at the CTV," and I'm like, "Calm down, man! Like it's supposed to be with friends, right? You're supposed to be doing
amateurs.
This with friends. Yeah,
we're better than the CTV."
Yeah, come on, Ryan, grow up. I hope you
finally. We're better than CTV. We have hardcore nudity.
That's right. We hope one day that Ryan decides to come back on this podcast. We think he will. He'll get over his snit. And if you want to figure out what the snit is, you can take a look at his tweets over the last couple of days, and you can actually put together why he's really upset his team isn't in the playoffs anymore. So, all right, with that, we're going to talk about teams that are in the playoffs. Let's take a look at this Habs Golden Knights series. Now, I don't think anyone really thought that this is the way the series was going to go, but if you're watching the last two games, it's probably less of a surprise to you that the Habs are actually the team in lead heading into the next game here. Like, originally, Vegas is a powerhouse team. They had their roadblocks. They had some struggles against Minnesota. They seem to be pretty competent handling Colorado. And okay, chill out, Cat. And but then all of a sudden against this Habs team, we're starting to see a very different Vegas Golden Knights than we're used to seeing. We're seeing a team that's struggling, a team that's got a little bit more frustration, a team that can't get its power play going. Mind you, that's been a common problem all year. What do we think? Like, where are we at with this series? Is this now the Habs series? Is all the pressure on Vegas to try to win this thing now? Where are you guys at with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a must. I think it's must win for Vegas. Like, the Montreal Canadiens are, winning the series 3-2. Like they need to buckle down. Fleury needs to find his game again, or they've got to go back to Leonard, because right now they've created a controversy, and I think they're struggling with the identity that they created, and they seem to not be able to find that. And also, I think the league has underestimated the skill in the North. It's so much said about the North doesn't have any defense. The North is such a weaker division. It's proving to be not true. And it's looking like Montreal's going to run away with it.
You bring up two interesting points, but both 2 points that need to be talked about. One, the goaltending issue in Las Vegas. Now, as far back as last year, the controversy was that they went with Lehner when they had Marc-Andre Fleury. His agent put out that picture of him with a giant knife through his back. This year, they've been going the opposite. They've been going with Marc-Andre Fleury, big yawns, buddy. And Robin Lehner played, they win a game, and the next game they go back to Fleury and they lose. And there was lots of talk about that. Like, this team has rotated back and forth on goalies. Lehner has not played that much due to his injuries. And at the same time, it would have been his first back-to-back game, I think, in forever. But if you're Pete DeBoer, what do you do now? Do you go with Robin Lehner, or do you go to Marc-Andre Fleury, a guy whose save percentage or goals above expected is so high that it's literally probably going to guarantee him the Vezina this year?
He really backed himself into a corner, and he didn't play this thing right at all. So you put in Leonard, you're tied 2-2, you're down 2-1, you put him in, and you tie the series up 2-2, and you're like, okay, let's ride Leonard. The team's behind them, the change in momentum, changing goalie. And then for no reason at all, they put back in Fleury. I've never seen in the playoffs, and maybe you have, or in the comments, let me know, but I can't remember a single time, barring injury, that a winning goalie did not play the next game in the playoffs. It just never happens. If you win, you keep the hot hand and you keep them going. I've never seen this. Like, this is unprecedented. Regular season, sure. But this is the playoffs, and it's the conference finals, and Leonard comes in, plays terrific. Now they bring in Fleury and they lose. So, like, what do? I mean, you put in Leonard again, and then Fleury's going to say, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm not coming back next year. Or you put in Fleury and Leonard's like, you gave me the chance. I won, and I never got a second chance. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, the coach has really messed this up beyond belief. Like, this was kind of like an easy thing. It's like, okay, you're putting in Leonard, let's ride him out. And man, I can't believe how bad he messed this up. Like, this is, if people have got fired for less than this. This is unbelievable.
Well, one, I think they're still, aren't they? Didn't they just finish paying for Gallant this year anyway? So they're probably not going to switch coaches. But I do think something that comes up from what you said there, even though they're not an expansion team, like, this team is kind of hitting its crisis point on those two goaltenders. Not even the fact that you have two great goaltenders, that's fine. But the cash amount for a cash strap team, you're looking at like what, I think $7 and $4 million, right? Like, for those contracts, that's a hefty toll to be paying. And there's only a certain amount of time that you still have Fleury under contract. And right now his value is as high as it is. Like, I imagine that no matter what happens, he's probably going to be on the move sometime soon. What do you think about the narrative that if you really look at Marc-Andre Fleury in the last couple of years here, he's been the guy to drag you to the final fight, but he's never been the guy to finish the final fight. You know, Matt Murray was a goaltender who won the Penguins' last two cups, but it was essentially Marc-Andre Fleury's work that helped get them there a lot of that way. But he hasn't been the one to finish it. Are we kind of seeing a repeat of that? Is that who he is as a goaltender? The guy who can get you to pretty much the end, but he can't take you over the hump?
No, I would disagree with that because he's done it already.
Two rings indicate otherwise. So
yeah,
shut
but
up.
the first one debunks that, right? And you hear players talk about how hard it is to.
It was a stacked team, Adam. I'm sorry, continue.
You just want me to say you're right.
I'm just going to edit you out anyway, so it don't matter. I'm just going to edit that word in there, so it'll just be like, you're right. And then they'll cut this, whatever Sunjay says after this. So. And just so people are time stamping, it's at 7:34, Baron, just so you have this right.
You do make a very, very good point, though, in terms of, like, there was a year before they won the cup against Detroit. Got them to the final, right? Then the second year, got them to the finals, won. And then there were the Matt Murray years, right, where he drugged them there. And then there was, how many times in the playoffs has he done this with Vegas? 3? Like, that's like 7 or 8 times that he's done this, and he's only won once. But he's got 3 rings, right?
Right. Like, I'm not saying his wins aren't valuable. Like, he is definitely a contributing part of all those teams. Yeah. But I do wonder, like, is the narrative he can get you pretty much to the end, but he can't carry you across the threshold? Sunjay, what are your thoughts on that?
It definitely affects his legacy. Like, when we talk about the all-time greatest goalies, you know, when you're down in a pressure-packed situation, you know, you can count on them. Hasek, Waugh, Brodeur, Belfour, Cujo, you know, those are like the cream of the crop, the best goalies of all time. You can't put Fleury in that conversation because of this, you know. Would you ever think to pull Hasek in the Stanley Cup Finals? I mean, I know Detroit did that later on in his career, but in his prime, that would be unheard of. So, you know, I think this is really affecting Fleury's status and ranking. Not that he cares, probably, but it is, in my opinion, at least affecting his all-time ranking for goalies. I mean, it's a big thing to get pulled in the Stanley Cup Final, and you know, it definitely has affected my opinion. Like, this year, he had a terrific year, but I'm hesitant to put him ahead of some other greats because of this.
Okay, so, but here's a question. So let's look at a different sport. Like, let's look at Jim Kelly, who is the Buffalo Bills franchise quarterback for years. He was the guy who took him to the Super Bowl 4 times in a row, but he could never win it for them. He's still a great quarterback. But you're right. I don't know that he holds himself in the all-time greats conversation anymore because of it. But doesn't that still establish some type of legacy? And the truth is, the difference is Fleury has won it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you guys would say something else.
Yeah, but they didn't pull Jim Kelly. Like, it would be one thing if, like, they put him in.
You mean like Doug Flutie?
And then they're like, here you go, we're putting in the backup, right? Like, they would never do that. Like, they would never pull Tom Brady, or they would never pull Patrick Mahomes and say, okay, we're putting in the second string quarterback.
He's your homie?
He is not. He breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And for any Bills Mafia fans out there, Sunjay was initially a Bills fan, and he switched teams to Tennessee after the benching of Doug Flutie.
Music City Miracle, baby.
Yeah, just like that, man.
My allegiances can be bought and sold if you give me
lost more than that game. You lost Sunjay.
Stay tuned for next year when Sunjay starts cheering for the Oilers.
I was say, what is the way to buy your soul as an Oilers fan? What would Calgary have to do that would cause you to like walk away, or what would another franchise have to do? Let's say Seattle to make you switch allegiance.
Oh, it's pretty easy. If the Oilers drafted me, I would become an Oilers fan pretty quick. Or they signed me as a free agent, I would be like, all right, let's do this, Oilers. Besides that, there would be almost nothing. Like, I've been through a lot with the Flames. Like, I remember when Jason Weimer was our captain, and it wasn't like the worst choice either on that roster. So I've been through some lean times. It's gonna take a lot to buy this allegiance from me. But what's that?
What if Beagle?
Well, he knows that. I cheer for Calgary against Vancouver, but with Washington, it was kind of like, okay, I'll cheer for both equally. So if a friend was on a team, or I was on the team, I could change allegiance. But besides that, it'd be pretty tough to get me to change allegiances.
What if Jerome McGinley joined the coaching staff of the Oilers?
Or as their GM.
Yeah.
Well, he was on Boston, Pittsburgh, LA, Colorado, and didn't cheer for. I mean, I kind of cheered for him to win the cup, but like I didn't cheer for them against Calgary. So it would, he would have to Iginla would have to come out and be like, yeah, I really wanted to stay in Calgary, but the Flames didn't want anything to do with me, so they traded me to Pittsburgh. And I really wanted to go to Boston, but at the last second they said, no, I'm trading you to Pittsburgh. And and like Kiprusoff too wanted to keep playing, but the Flames said, you retire now. Then I'd be like, okay, maybe I could.
You'd be back. I remember watching Ben Scrivens be our goaltender and just turning off the TV, being like, I can't do this. I need a break. And I just let go for a while, and it was good. But I mean, at the end of the day, I came back. So we all come back at the end. It helps.
Years. Those dark years, you'd get to the end of January and you'd be like, okay, off season.
Yeah. It's funny because you would know. You would know before Christmas you were done, Oh.
I love that as a Flames fan. I'm not gonna lie, I really love that because for the first time and probably forever, the province of Alberta was more Flames fans than Oilers fans. Like, if you look at like the province as a whole, like since the two teams have been in the league, it's like more Oilers fans than Flames fans. We're kind of like the little brother franchise in the province. But during those dark days, shit, man, I remember going to West Edmonton Mall and seeing like Flames jerseys everywhere. It was awesome. Like, I've never experienced something like that before. I was like, what's going on here? This is bizarre world. But those were some special times for Flames fans.
Yeah, I was gonna say sad times. Yeah. What's the highlight of your time where the Oilers sucked? Well, there was more Flames fans. Not anything good with your team. Just
it's not like we were lighting it up either, right? Like, we had a couple good years, but it's not like we were like winning cups and winning division and conference championships. It's like we were making the playoffs and we were competitive, but we weren't doing as much. So it was something.
We're going to go back to the series we were talking about just because there's a fair bit of stuff still to kind of converse about around the subject. I know, but I don't want Ryan to yell at me like I gave him a red M&M. So some of the conversation on the Habs has been that they've been lucky when top centermen have been out. So they didn't have to deal with John Tavares, who's a second line center. Let's call him a spade. And then Scheifele, and now Chandler Stevenson, whose father-in-law I met in Saskatoon randomly two weekends ago. Very nice man. We talked a lot about the Blue Jays. So yeah, that was one of the most random encounters ever. But
we had a name drop.
Hey, I never gave his name, but he does own a restaurant in Saskatoon whose name escapes me, and it was very good. So if you're in Saskatoon, just ask, and you'll find it. But yeah, no, it was great. Anyways, so they've been kind of playing up against teams that have been a little bit bitten with the injury bug and bitten with the suspension bug. Yeah, that makes sense. So looking at those things, have they had an easier pathway to the cup? Like, has it made things, or are they lucky in that sense that they've been able to kind of take advantage of injuries? Like, what does this say about this Habs team? Are they actually good? Because I mean, they haven't won anything yet. Let's call a spade here. This series is still open. Vegas could win 2 games in a row, and it doesn't matter. But have the Canadians been lucky? Are they, or have they been good? Like, what's your real thoughts on this team?
Well, I'm going to say they've been good. They've got players that are playing injured too, key players. You look at Jeff Petrie and his eyes. Look at Corey Perry and his face. Like, I am sure Shea Weber is injured as well. Like, Shea Weber's always got some sort of injury that's nagging him. So I think they've just been good. And really what sent them over the top is the emergence of Cole Caulfield coming into their lineup and sparking kind of a youth flame with Suzuki, and he's been a major part in them getting
benched
over
forward.
What's that?
He was benched the first game, benched forward.
Yeah, like and obviously like he's shone since, right? But
yeah. So I think I would agree. Injuries are part of the playoffs and how you manage that, and all the other teams, like Tavares was a freak accident, but Scheifele like went out and like injured one of their players like pretty severely, so that player was gone, and then Stevenson's out. I mean, Montreal plays a heavy game, so I fully expect other teams to probably lose a man or two during a 7-game series with them.
Yeah, well, fair enough. This takes us a little bit. Let's jump to the other series, which is occurring right now and going into overtime with a 2-2 score, which could potentially be the last game played in Nassau Coliseum. The New York Islanders versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. This series has been a little bit interesting. For the most part, they seem like they've been pretty tight, close games. And then the last game was an absolute shellacking or shit kicking or whatever you want to call it. Essentially, they took the Islanders to the woodshed. They were just like flopping up pucks at this point, and it was getting past Sorensen and Varlamov. So we have to kind of wonder here, like, is this series basically wrapped up? I know the Islanders could win here game 6 and so forth. It's overtime, lots of options still. But do you feel like the series is done?
Well, we post this tomorrow, so like if I say no and then the Lightning come and win in overtime, I'm gonna look awfully stupid. But I'm gonna say not at all. Not at all. The Islanders are a well-coached team, and if they win today, they're gonna take it in 7. I think this could be completely wrong, and the Lightning could score 30 seconds later, and you guys can in your comments let me know about it. But I think it's always bad to beat a team 8-0 or 7-1 in a series. It's just something about that, like the other team gets like angry and like it just never ends well, I think. So for me, I'm gonna say Islanders are gonna take this in 7.
Adam?
Yeah, I think the Islanders, if I'm a player or a part of that organization, 2 nights ago was embarrassing, and you've got a lot to prove. And I think you're going to leave it all on the ice. I do think that they win in overtime tonight and push game 7. And it'd be an interesting game 7, especially if Kucherov is out. That's right. Evens the playing field a little bit more in terms of skill and bringing down Tampa Bay a little bit more to the Islanders' level in terms of scoring and skill.
Yeah, no, it is a good, interesting point. Like, losing Kucherov is a huge loss to this team, and they've already, like we said, they've already lost Chandler Stevenson. So like, those things are kind of problematic already. It's tough. Like, it's been an interesting series. I don't know though. It's one of the ones that's been highlighted. To some degree, some of the issues with reffing isn't just stuck to the North Division, that it's a little bit everywhere. And we'll talk about that a little bit just because it's kind of cumulative of the entire piece. But for the longest time, the Islanders got barely anything called against them when it came in terms of penalties versus other teams. And like they said, they were one of the least penalized teams. But when you're watching that video, you're not seeing an unpenalizable team. You're just seeing a team that's getting away with stuff. And that was always kind of shocking to me. And I just feel like that style of hockey that the Islanders play is very much consistent on the fact that everything has to work. If everyone plays their role and plays it as best they can, the Islanders should win. And that game that they didn't, when people were getting frustrated and so forth, it fell off the rails hard, that the Lightning could just take advantage of it. And that's the one thing that still stands out to me, is that when things went bad for anybody, they lost by a goal or two. When things went bad for the Islanders, they got pumped. And I don't think that should be indicative of who they are or how their season went. But I feel like the option's open there, that if something goes bad, it's a floodgate. And I just think that that's the difference between a team that won the Stanley Cup, like the Lightning, who has a little bit more maturity, and the Islanders, who are still kind of learning their way through this. And I say that I bet on the Islanders today. I think that they're going to win tonight. I still think they lose Game 7.
Yeah, I think if it gets to 7, they'll take it. I just don't see them losing with everything that's going on. And if they're able to win this in overtime, that's a huge boost. And then they get all the momentum. And especially if Kucherov is, as Adam mentioned, if he's out, it's going to be tough for the
Oilers won Game 6 against Carolina. They didn't win Game 7. Nothing is guaranteed, Sunjay.
That's true. But Tampa Bay won Game 6 and then won Game 7.
Ooh.
So
this will decide that. We'll know for sure now after whatever next game is.
Who was the better team, the 04 Lightning or the 06 Hurricanes? Let's battle it up.
It'll be interesting. I would take the 04 Lightning in a heartbeat. That was a way better team than the 06 Hurricanes. But we'll probably know the end of this game before the end of this episode. And if you ever want,
everything you just said could have just been out of
pointless, just pointless. And then Ryan sending me text saying, make sure to mention that you should like, click, and subscribe to the pod. So please do that, because he's aware of us. He knows that we're doing this without him.
Did he say that? Did he actually text you?
Oh, okay. No, but it's fun to just
send me one too.
No, wait, guys, I got one too.
You should have your wife dress up like him and start yelling at you from behind there. Every episode has to have a ratio of Leafs talk of 1 to 4. That's how it works. 1 to 4. Yes,
yeah. If you look at our rating since that Game 7 loss, it's just been downhill because we're not talking about the Leafs.
That's a big part. Make sure we'll be able to tag that. If you like the Leafs or hate the Leafs, like, click, subscribe.
Please add in the comments any Leafs
Excellent.
you'd like to discuss.
We're going to move on a little bit. One of the biggest things that's really popped up of this in the last little while is the conversation around reffing. The Montreal Canadiens game really highlighted it in a lot of ways when essentially Shea Weber was committing murder on a player in front of the net. And at the same time, Suzuki gets punched in the face openly in front of the ref while he's staring at him, and then gets called on a hooking penalty where he touches his hands and does not impede him on the shot. Elliot Friedman was on Hockey Night in Canada talking about this, and he said, there's always people that complain about reffing, but he's never had a game where there's been this many people, whether it was former players, GMs, so forth, media people texting him being like, are you watching this? This is absolute garbage. And the conversation has been like, there's no consistency. There's essentially two types of hockey. We have regular season hockey where you can only do so much, and then playoff hockey where you can either do anything you want or, once again, can't do anything at all depending on who's looking at it. And there's been no consistency. Where are you guys at when it comes to the state of reffing in the game? And what, if any, solutions do you think exist for this problem?
Oh, it's tough when you think about solutions, because these conversations have happened in the past about officiating in the playoffs, and where's the line? Why was that called when that wasn't? It's tough, and I think maybe the league needs to be a bit more clear with what they want in officiating. And if there's a rule book, call the rule book. There's rules there for a reason, and the refs are there to establish it, and they need to make that call. I listened to the same podcast on 31 Thoughts, and he was saying, usually the first call sets a precedent for what it's going to be for the rest of the game. Well, he was like, that just hasn't really happened. And I agree with what he said. Sometimes, we watched in the first game against the Edmonton Oilers and the Winnipeg Jets, one penalty, and there was a lot of dirty crap going on between both teams that could have been called. So I don't know, maybe they need to revamp and visit, different options in terms of, what consistency looks like.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I feel like with NHL rules, there's a lot of opinion and it's very subjective. Like, one ref may call this and one ref may not call that. And like, as a fan, it can be very frustrating because you have two refs out there, and like, especially when it's against your team, like if there's like something going on here, like it close to one side, and then the ref close there doesn't call it, but the
Islanders
ref at the
won.
Belleville, Bolivia.
Really?
Yeah.
Just as I was saying previously, I believe the Islanders. Okay, we'll put this before that. So the Islanders are going to score.
Yeah. Who's your pick for overtime?
Yeah, Bucci overtime challenge.
Well, I'm not going to pick any. I'm going to go out on
Maine,
say
baby.
no Lightning, and Villiers.
Yeah, just off the top of my head.
Continue on this, Sunjay.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. I just feel like, sometimes when like the refs on the other side, it's like, how does the ref far away make the call, but the ref close? And it's because it's so subjective. And I feel like even if they were calling everything, the team that's losing would still complain about the refs saying, oh, they're not letting anything go. This is playoff hockey. And, we're getting called for anything. We can't do anything. This is garbage. And I feel like being an NHL ref is like the toughest position, because like I don't really want it to be like when you watch like a basketball game where like someone goes in and it's like, oh, this guy, it's like foul because he's a superstar. It's like you gotta earn your ice and earn your spot to a degree, and maybe not to this degree, but there's got to be some line in the middle where you call some stuff, but you let some other stuff go. Like it should be less calls than the regular season, but it shouldn't be like the Wild West out there. There's got to be some sort of line in the sand, and I think they're too far this way right now, and they need to just rein it in a little bit.
So do either of you have a solution that would help fix this that you can think of? Like, it's not an easy question because, NHL people can't even figure it out, but you don't have it to do this for a living, so you could maybe just come up with something. Anything?
Maybe you talk about it at the GM general meeting, when all the GMs are together and you get them all in the room and, you have them talk to their staff about what they think, coaching staff, and, then you come and you form a 32-team brain trust and come up with a solution that way. And of course you're going to have your old school thinkers and, you're going to have those kind of debates. But I think that might be the only solution, is getting every team involved in that conversation and coming up with, some form of plan that works.
Yeah, because I just feel like it's so ingrained in the game, like stuff that we say in hockey that we just say willy-nilly, you would never say in another sport, right? Like you would never be like, oh, our team's got 3 penalties against us in football, so the next one has to be against the other team, right? But in hockey, even in beer league, you're like, we've had 3 calls against, so the next one's got to be the other team. And you even say that on the bench. You're like, guys, like we've had 3 straight power plays. Don't do anything because the ref's going to call the next one on us. So people know that from minor hockey to the NHL. It's just something that's always been done in hockey, like the even up calls. So you'd have to really work hard to get that out of the game. And maybe the best thing to do is just next season call it like the playoffs, so that teams have a chance to adjust, and then don't change anything and just keep it going like that. But it's going to be a long process because it's so ingrained in hockey culture.
Right. No, that's a good point. Systemic issues are essentially the hardest to fix. And as we've talked about before on this podcast, there are certain issues that are just ingrained in the culture of hockey that are just hard to weed out. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. I think some of these things do have to definitely be attacked, but it is not a quick solution, I think, is the best way to look at that. We're going to jump around a little bit to Sunjay's area here, with rumors coming out that his star player, Matthew Tkachuk, wants out of the shit show that is the Calgary Flames. Now, this is amid rumors that this season, that after having a puck flick at him by Jake Muzzin. His team told him, hey, man, we don't want to fight every night, so we won't back you because we don't support you. And since then, we saw a decline in Tkachuk's performance for the team, essentially unable to carry them over the hump like he had previous years. What are your thoughts on the rumor, Sunjay? And if you believe in it, and if you don't believe in it, where do you think he would go? And what are inside scoops do you have living there in Calgary? There must be lots of buzz around the city. Come on, fire it out.
Oh yeah. You know, everyone. It's the hottest rumor since we heard that Fleury wanted out. No, honestly, I don't put much credence to this rumor. I mean, I hope it's wrong for one because I love Matthew Tkachuk on the Flames. I think he's a terrific player. He's been great for this franchise. He's great in the city. He does a ton of charity work. Nice guy, despite what you hear from the media up north, but terrific guy. And just like a pro, like he knows how to carry himself. He grew up in the, an NHL dressing room. He's watched his dad in the NHL for a number of years. So he just carries himself with elegance, and he's just a good player as well. So where do this rumor? I don't know. There's been talk that he said he would like to play in St. Louis because that's where he's from. But I don't know. I don't really see much to it. I mean, yeah, there may have been some issues at the beginning of the year, but it seemed like they really worked them out. Once Sutter came in, about the last 15 games of the season, when they put him on that top line with Gaudreau and Lindholm, and then you really saw Tkachuk's production pick up again. And I think it was just a case of finding better line mates to play with. And he's getting a great shot. Whoever he gets traded to probably won't be playing with as good a line mates as Gaudreau and Lindholm. I think he wants to stay. But the issue is he's got one more year left, and then you got to qualify him at $9 million. And with a flat cap, that's a lot of cash to allocate to one player. So Calgary's got to make a hard decision. But I hope that if there's anything to this rumor, I hope it's squashed, and I hope he signs a long-term deal and stays in Calgary for at least 5-6 more years.
I was going to make another point here just to kind of work off of, but you made something comment that kind of stands out more. Why did they have to qualify him at $9 million? Why is he worth $9 million?
I think it has something to do with his contract that he signed. He doesn't even want to listen to any Tkachuk talk.
He's just so upset. He's just like, I can't stand this.
Let's talk about Cassian.
Or Ryan is there where you being like, are you making fun of me? And Adam's like, I gotta go here. Give me a second, guys. No, the podcast is asking for subscribe, at the bottom.
Yeah, make sure every 5 minutes people to like and subscribe.
He's just gonna be so mad at us when he listens to this. He's like, I can't believe this is what they've all done. Okay, but continue. So why do you think it's $9 million?
Just a second before we hit the 9 million. Click like and subscribe, folks.
Yeah, we would like 9 million likes and subscribes to this episode.
It's the thing I hate the most about watching any YouTube video. It really is. But so we're part of the system now. Oh, it's systemic.
It's we're talking about systemic issues. It's because he signed the deal and he's a restricted free agent next year, and I think that's where the qualifying offer comes from. I don't know the whole logistics, but all I just know is that that's his cap hit if he signs a 1-year deal in Calgary.
Yeah, if he signs a 1-year deal, but what if they sign a 6-year deal or an 8-year deal?
I think if he signs a 6-year deal, he can go for whatever. But I think if Calgary offers him a 1-year qualifying offer, it's a $9 million. So that's
you're right. I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
To keep him, if he decides he doesn't want to sign with them, but he has to do it 1 year, it's going to cost $9 million. Yeah,
$9 million, and then he'll be gone. Because if he signs a 1 year, he doesn't have much intention to stay. He'll be gone in free agency as an unrestricted free agent. So,
but
that could be.
Sorry, I was gonna say since the media in Calgary kind of craps on Gaudreau all the time, and now we're seeing them start to slightly crap on Matthew Tkachuk. Is that just part of the transition that this is going to become Matthew's team since the media is crapping on him, or that maybe Gaudreau will be gone?
It's a circle of life. I remember when the media used to hate on Iginla, saying can he lead this team? I remember,
not to a Stanley Cup, apparently. Well, to a cup, but not lifting it, I guess.
But he led us to the best years we've had in a long time. But I remember, the Calgary media. I remember reading an article in the Calgary Herald before Iggy had his 50-goal season, and this guy was like, Calgary has no identity. We should trade Iginla, and Michael Pekka wants to leave Buffalo. He would bring identity to Calgary. Let's trade Iginla for Michael Pekka. And Yeah.
Oh.
And that was before he went off for 50 goals. And so, be careful what you wish for, and don't listen to the media with trade rumors, because that would have really crippled the franchise had that trade gone through.
Oh, that one would be up there. That's like a haul.
I think Buffalo would probably have a Stanley Cup or two if they had a Ginla and Hasek on the same team. So
fair enough. Adam, any thoughts there on Matthew Tkachuk?
He is a Tkachuk. And I think there's just a ploy when there's no news. A lot of media likes to make up kind of garbage. I don't see Tkachuk going anywhere. I could see, Gaudreau leaving before Tkachuk. Like, you hear that he's the backbone of that. He's going to be the future of the Flames. So I can't really get behind them moving him unless he requests it, right? But it just said he was unhappy. Like a source said, he's unhappy. Well, what player's not unhappy when their team doesn't make the playoffs either? You know what I mean? Like, he'll be there.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right? You don't want the player to be like, I'm super happy that we had a disappointing year.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true, actually. Okay, we're going to jump to our our armchair GM segment here. So this week, it's up for a little bit different. It's the way the system works, in case you're unfamiliar with it from the last episode or from a highlight video, is essentially you have to pick a trade, make a free agent signing, and offer up a sacrificial lamb to the god that is the Seattle Kraken. Last week, Ryan did the Toronto Maple Leafs. Adam did the Edmonton Oilers. And you can see that video. It's a highlight video we have posted out there. This week's going to be a little bit different. Sunjay's going to do Calgary. And even though it's not my team, I'm going to do the Vancouver Canucks. So really, Sunjay, it's your call. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Rock, paper, scissors?
Let's do it.
All right,
okay,
ready?
Hold up. One. Wait, stop. Did we go on go or did we go rock, paper?
Rock, paper, scissors, go.
Okay, yeah, that's what I want to go. All right.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors,
go.
Oh my God, you guys, that was so pathetic.
Well, because he started going so slow. He's like, rock. I'm like,
It was because of the camera. It wasn't synced properly. So you saw I did paper for like half an hour.
Hard line in. That's your issue, not mine. That's an issue, not an issue.
You go first then.
I will. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, sweet guy of the Vancouver Canucks. And as I've already stated, this is not my team. I'm not like someone who follows the Canucks religiously or anything like that. I don't have any Canucks stuff around you. In fact, the stuff around me indicates probably that I'm not a huge fan of the Canucks. That being said, I have friends who are. So I reached out to a couple friends to ask them questions about the team, thoughts on what should happen and so forth, and what they think the big offseason moves were and what my own were as well. And we kind of came up with a little bit of a list. I did it separately without telling them, but we looked at it this way. We said number one need was a top 4 D-man. Number 2 was to resign major UFAs, Pettersson, Hughes, even Edler, who's a little bit older, but going up as a free agent. They need to get some of those UFAs under contract. I do believe Pettersson's a RFA, but you know what I mean. They have to get some of their guys signed. And then the third need I had for this team was to create cap space with temporary damage. In other words, damage that wouldn't be long lasting to this team. One of the big issues that's occurred in the last little while is contracts that have essentially hurt them and allowed them or have prevented them from making signings or getting players of better quality. That being said, they keep kind of doing it, dump $4 million into who eventually became your backup goalie. That's a very Edmonton Oilers style move if I've ever seen one. And he's still got another year of it left. So I got a couple different amendments here and some things to talk about, but I'm going to go through some stuff. My first move is actually going to involve the Seattle Kraken. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade them a first, even though it's a terrible move to always give up a first. I'm going to trade a first. And despite giving up that high pick to Seattle, it's going to be so that they take Tyler Myers off my hand. Tyler Myers is a contracted player who makes $6 million to play on this defense. And even though the defense isn't the strong point, that $6 million contract is an anchor. He is not worth $6 million, and that's a huge problem. So if you can unload that, even though you have a high draft pick, I think it's probably worth it. I will also state that, as Sunjay has pointed out numerous times, I feel like this draft's a little bit crazier, but that means that you might lose right now with that top pick, but that there's more value later in the draft. And if Vancouver has proven anything, it's that their scouting department is great and that they can grab guys later in the draft who will produce. So even though that number one might be a banger, unless it's a surefire thing, I think you do that. You hit yourself off that $6 million and you roll. So that's my first move. It's a little bit of a trade, but it's also I'm getting rid of a bad contract to Seattle and just ensuring that that's who they take. Other than that, it sounds like they're probably going to take Mott, and I'm not sure what you feel about that. That money you're going to be used to sign Pettersson to a long-term contract. My guess was around 7.5 for 5 years. Give him a little bit of the Austin Matthews deal, which is I'm not signing you for forever. I'm signing you for a little bit, just long enough till the cap starts to rise that you can gain more money later on. So he's being paid roughly $1 million and some more than his point total. I think he's at 60 some points per season. I think $7 million, that's a little bit of a, hey, we believe in you. Hey, you're going to grow, but you're going to get paid a little bit more too. And the 5 years just gives it time to get past those cap casualty problems there, and to also a time when the contracts themselves are off the books, allowing them to do more. I will state that this is a team that still has Roberto Luongo to pay for, amongst other things, right? Because they were part of the cap recapture program. Right. So those kind of things are the hurdles that they have to work with. My signing was to go for Jamie Oleksiak, D-man out of Boston, who had a really good year. Looking at articles out of Dallas, the conversation was the Dallas Stars should not pay this guy over $1 million, given his output. But he was also the best D-man on the team. And he's already making 2.5, which tells you he's going to make at least that, maybe more. And the truth is these kind of contracts have essentially hurt this team. But if you do this and you sign Oleksiak, you get a steady defender, a guy who can play a little bit in the middle, someone who could even pair with Hughes and help stabilize his game a bit more, where he's just there in kind of a mentorship role. It's not long enough that it's horrifically damaging. Mind you, you've said this before, and there's a couple of those contracts. But I feel like it just gives you have a few years here where you can work and they hopefully benefit off each other. So that was, hit the wrong button. So that was my thoughts there. The next move I had was I looked at, I also thought that Edler should probably be re-signed, but to give him like a Mike Smith style deal where it's like a 1 year bonus incentive, like, oh, you have to play X amount of games. Oh, if you get this, and keep him on the team because I do think he's a huge part of it. Another trade that I looked at was moving Ferland because of his concussion issues to another team that had LTIR as well, that you could like take that, use that space to get maximum LTIR. The problem right now with that is Ferland's got 2 more years on this contract. So with this 2 years in this contract, that's a long time to have an LTIR. At the same time with that, even though it's probably mostly guaranteed, that's usually a contract you move by giving something else up, or taking a bad contract back. And the teams that I thought that would be really good for it, like Chicago, have so much of it that you can't really move them. At the same time, a team like Vancouver can at least use $3.5 million to plug in new guys or RFA guys by benching them, saying, yeah, you're going down to the minors, and then being like, oh, game day, you're playing, come play. So I decided against that move, even though I did try to explore it for a bit. But the last thing I did was I made a trade and I picked between some of their prospects, and no one will be happy about this. But given how last year went, or not last year, the previous season, how Vancouver was able to pry JT Miller out of Tampa for essentially a first round pick and I think it was a conditional third. I feel like Tampa's another team that they can probably pry some players out of, and that essentially by having that relationship already, this trade won't be that hard to make. And so what I thought was they could trade someone, and I just picked one of their prospects at kind of random from the list of big ones, which was, as I said, you give up Cole Lind because he's probably not going to play right away. A second rounder and maybe or a conditional second to Tampa. And you get Anthony Cirelli, who has 2 years, 2 years at $4.5 million, which is enough time for them to get out of some of their contracts and eventually have more space and make some more moves then. So, and see where he fits in it. They had a big game tonight, even though they lost. So those were my big moves. So quick recap. The moves were trade a first to take Tyler Myers' contract off the boat. Use that money to re-sign Pettersson. That was part of the first one. The second move was to sign Jamie Oleksiak as a D-man to kind of steady up that D-core, but also to try to re-sign Edler for like a Mike Smith style deal. And the third move was to get Anthony Cirelli using a prospect and a pick. So what say you?
with Alexiak, you always got to wonder about taking someone who's the second best athlete in the family. And he is by far the second best athlete in the family.
You're not wrong.
That was a penny for your
shout out
thoughts.
to Penny. Good luck to her in the Olympics. But no, I think that's a good move. I think those are some good moves for Vancouver. They got a lot of cap. They don't have a lot of cap, and this would free up a lot of cap for them to make some free agent moves, because I think this team is dynamic, and I think they're a team on the rise that just a couple tweaks here and there. Don't forget, this is a team that made the second round and took Vegas to 7 last year. So a couple tweaks here and there, and it would have allowed them to re-sign
Markstrom.
Markstrom? No, not Markstrom, but the goal scorer in Montreal.
Toffoli.
Toffoli, yeah. Like, so they are cap strapped, and I think these are some good moves. And I think Vancouver, the first though, giving up a first round pick when you have a top 10 pick. I mean, what's Myers' contract for how many more years after this?
It is $6 million, and I do believe it is for a few more years. Just let me take a quick look. Adam, you can give me your comments on the trade, and I'll keep looking for that at the moment.
Yeah, that was the Alexiak.
Oh, any of them.
Signing.
All three of the moves. You can give thumbs
I
up.
don't mind the Alexiak signing. I feel like, well, I guess you got Quinn Hughes, so it's not bad. It's an improvement. And that's what they need. Get Myers out. You get someone who's a little bit more defensively solid with a bit more speed than Myers and Alexiak.
Myers is 3 years at $6 million.
Ooh.
Okay, so that would free up a lot. I'm just leery about giving up a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, that's tough, but that's a nice carrot to dangle to take that contract, and I think that's a carrot you need to. If you're Vancouver, I like how you brought up the chaos theory in terms of the draft, because I completely agree. I don't know what the hell is out there really, because there was just shortened season after shortened season. Really, what are we looking forward to? We're looking forward to Bedard. Yeah. Really, that's a solid guy that you're like, this is what this guy's going to be. But that's what 2-3 years down the road. Mm-hmm. Whereas like this draft, I couldn't tell you. There's no one that sticks out really. Right?
That's because your team made the playoffs. You were watching playoff hockey while I was watching
4 days of it. Come on,
there's the Sillinger kid. There's the Sillinger kid that's in it, and I know that because I'm from Regina.
Yeah,
that's
Is
it,
he from
right?
Regina?
Yeah. So
a lot of mock drafts have him going to Calgary, so that's good to know. Hopefully he's good.
Yeah. And then the trade. You said Cirelli for what kind of a pick are you sending that way?
Cole Lind, which is one of their top prospects, and then I said a second or a conditional that becomes a second.
And what are we looking at Cirelli as, a third
2 years, 4.5? No, he'll probably play up in their top 6.
Okay.
Actually, no, Shirley would be their third line center. Sorry, he would be, I believe.
And that to me is like, are you giving up too much then to get a third line?
But that's also where they were like, I think, kind of hammered last year.
Right.
Actually, no, he'd play second line, and then you'd push someone else down into third. Who was it again?
It's a better trade than what I came up with.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I think the idea was that you push someone else down the lineup by having him, and then you have the option that he can play wing.
Yeah.
So,
those
are the big ideas. All right. Well, that's my team. We'll see how they do. I'm sure Canucks fans will hate my guts, and that's fine because I still did less damage to your team than your current GM. So, Sunjay,
or than your city did, than your fans did to your city after the riot.
Ooh, shut up. Which one? 94 or 2010?
Shout out to Brendan. Okay, you too, James, actually. Sunjay is now the GM of the Calgary Flames, so let's hear what you got.
Dreamt about this moment since I was a little kid, that the Flames would just look at me in the Saddle Dome and be like, you, son, you shall lead this team to glory.
In fairness,
And
there was a
lo and
couple of
behold,
years of ownership there where that was a potential.
Craig Budden was a quality GM. He's a nice guy. He's super nice guy, but
Yeah, he's friendly.
he has some good GM moves. But so I'm GM of the Flames, and I look at who my coach is. It's Daryl Sutter. He's not going to sit for a rebuild. He wants, you bring him in, you bring in a coach like Daryl Sutter if you want to win the cup. And I think that's where you got to look if you're Calgary. And I think you have a lot of pieces that can get you far. And the one thing that really held this team back was two good scoring lines. So they would have one line that was going, their first line, and then the second line would be MIA for half the year. And then they would switch it up again, and then one line would be going and another one wouldn't. And I think what you really need is you need elite talent on the right side. They have no elite right winger right now. And, Flames aren't really have that much cap space to bring in someone. So you got to look at some cheap options. And one cheap option is the entry draft. Now, I know we mentioned how there's not a lot of players that have played a lot of games. So anyone in this draft, is kind of a crapshoot. But I look at some players and I see star potential. And one of the stars I see is up north in Edmonton for the Oil Kings. And Dylan Gunther, I think his name's Gunther, or we'll say that. If it's not, I'll find out on draft day. But he played 12 games and he got 12 goals, 12 assists, 24 points. And this kid can put the puck in the net. And that's what you need when you have a player like Johnny Gaudreau dishing the puck to him. So I would look at a team like Detroit, who has a deep farm system, and there's a lot of talk about them taking a goalie in the first round. And they're kind of like the first team to take a goalie. So I think they'd be willing to kind of drop back a couple slots. And so if I was Calgary, I would offer my first round pick. So I think they're 12th overall to Detroit for their 6th overall. But I would throw in your second round pick from this year. And I would throw in a prospect. So I would give them a list of prospects from Calgary and say, okay, who do you want? Name your price, and we'll give you one of our top, not top, but one of our second tier prospects. And I think that would be enough to get the job done. So Detroit adds another pick. They move down a couple slots, but they still get to take their goalie. And Calgary gets an elite right winger that can slot in that top line in Dylan Gunther. And so you have him with Gaudreau and Lindholm as your top line. Then you have Monahan drops down to the second line. He plays with Mangiapane, who just won the MVP of the World Hockey Championships and a gold medal, and Matthew Tkachuk. And that's a pretty solid two pairings right there, top two lines that could go up against anyone's top two lines in the division. And then you look at Seattle, and Seattle needs to take a player, and Calgary can only protect 3 defensemen. And the ones that, people suspect they're going to take or protect is Chris Tanev, because he had a tremendous year, Noah Hannafin, because he's young and he had a good year, and Rasmus Andersson, because, again, he's young and he had a good year and he's going to grow. So that leaves your captain, your star defenseman, Norris Trophy winning defenseman, Mark Giordano, exposed. And if you're Seattle, what better player to bring in and kind of make your first captain and kind of build your team around than a former Norris Trophy winner who's 37, but he only has one more year left in his contract at 6.7. So you bring him in, it works. Hey, great, maybe he'll resign. If it doesn't work, you get $7 million in cap space, but you brought in a veteran leadership. So I actually think Mark Giordano is going to be the one to leave Calgary, and it'll be quite sad to see Gio leave, but I think he's a good player, and I think Seattle, if he's available, will take him. And I don't think Calgary's in a position to be giving up draft picks or anything else to say, don't take Giordano, especially if they do move up in the draft. They're already losing a little bit of draft capital, adding another pick. So I would, unfortunately, say goodbye to Gio. And then you look at the free agents and who you could bring in. And, you look at a player that played under Sutter and won a couple cups, and he's in the playoffs right now with Vegas, and that's Alex Martinez. And you bring him in to really anchor that second pairing with Rasmus Andersson. He can kind of replace a little bit of Gio's point totals. He's got that veteran leadership. He's a little bit younger than Gio. Gio is making $6.7 million. I believe Martinez is making around 4 right now, and I think he, deserves a little bit more. You kind of always got to overpay for free agents in the free agent pool, so I would offer him a 4-year deal at $6 million per, and so you save a little bit of cap space in that, 750,000. And I would also use that 750,000 savings and bring in a player like Wayne Simmons, who is a veteran, and he's a gritty player, but he has a nice hand and he can put the puck in the net, play on your power play. And I would bring him in and put him on a line with Lucic on your fourth line, and you could kind of see, they would be able to wear teams down in the playoffs. And this roster kind of gives them a little bit of that Montreal mix where they have some veterans, and they also have some youth and speed and skill on the team. So those would be my moves, and I would be happy. I would put that roster, put them together with Sutter with a full year of off-season training and proper practices, and no COVID protocols, so you couldn't really have team meetings, and they're all over Zoom. And I would put that roster, and I think they'd be a pretty solid team. So let me hear your thoughts. What do you guys think?
I thought it was good. I thought, the moving up in the draft was an interesting move, and unfortunately you gave away another Martin St. Louis. Sunjay, that's gonna bite you. No, I didn't mind that move, and it would make sense. You'd have to hope that kid drops to, what is it, 6th?
Yeah.
I think
that's the tough part there
too.
Yeah.
But man, when you said his numbers, I was like, whoa. Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. Putting up 2 points a game in the WHL is not.
Yeah. It's nothing to scoff at. Yeah.
No, he's good. I think he's just rated higher than 6, though. I do think too. The other issue is, and maybe it's not so much when you have a stack team, but like it's a team that always puts youth in. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad. You look at like Lafreniere this year. He didn't really have the year that everyone thought he was going to have. Edmonton for years banked on young guys. So I think it's a risky move in that sense. I don't dislike the move though, to try to get something that you want. And if he's acceptable and he's ready to pop up already on the second line or first line, you've at least created something neat, but it is a little bit of a gamble there. So I don't dislike the move. I found it interesting, but I think there's some risk to it for sure.
Yeah, I like the take of Giordano too, and just it almost it gets rid of all the old from the Flames and kind of brings that generation back around to a new one.
Yeah, and sorry.
I was going to say the GM move is interesting. You had told me that was what they were going to do before. I would have said no, but honestly, with a cap strap team, it's loyalty in sports is a weakness. Like it really is. And he's been good to them. They've been good to him. And I think at some point you got to say, see ya. It would be interesting, but I think if that's the player you leave unprotected, that's not necessarily a terrible decision on Seattle's part. I don't think he has what he used to have, but like you said, he is still a leader. He can still play top minutes. So, yeah, I think that's a thumbs up move on your part, Sunjay.
Yeah, me too.
The only other player I could think of them taking, Lucic is there, and, he grew up in the Vancouver area, and maybe they'd like to bring a guy that's, close to the area in there, and they have, they'll probably have a ton of cap space. So he's another player that, he said he's going to waive his no trade clause. So who knows, maybe he could go as well. And then if you do that, maybe then you don't need to bring in Alex Martinez, and you can use some of that money of Lucic's contract and bring in a veteran forward or something like that.
The Martinez move, I'm going to probably thumbs down. How many years did you say?
4 years.
Yeah, so he's 33, which means he'd be 37 years old. And I think that's a tough deal to lock yourself into. And I get that he's going to get paid probably, but 4 more years as a defenseman taking top line minutes, man, I don't know. That one to me is tough. Like, I agree. You probably have to pay to get him. I think you'd be better off to pay a bit for like a 2-year shot or something. But that's just my thoughts. But that one I'm a little hesitant on, mostly because of the length of term.
Yeah, Adam? No, fair enough. I'm kind of thinking like Calgary, go everything in while you have Sutter for the next 2 years, and then so maybe do a 3-year deal or something, and then see where this is at.
Well, I like the player, and you know what you're getting with the player, as opposed to going younger and taking a gamble with someone else. I'm kind of with Barron there in terms of like, I guess length in contract. Try to maybe get the 2, maybe 3 years of that, but like 4 for a guy that's going to be 37. Yeah. And then they've been playing hockey for so long, like injuries tend to catch up with players too.
Yeah. How many old guys do you need on your team too? Him and Simmons? Like just have a bunch of geriatrics on your team, like the Toronto model?
I was going to say the Toronto model. Yeah.
Going with Montreal. Who's on Montreal's 4th line? Stahl and
Perry.
Yeah, but not all year. Like they brought one of those guys.
Rotate in. Like Calgary's got another draft pick from 2019, Jacob Peltier, who was just in the QMHL championship game that his team lost, but he's up for the Hart Trophy there, like most valuable player award there. So he's another player that you could bring in and kind of inject some more youth in that team and kind of have a nice mix of youth and veteran leadership.
You do need a balance, that's for sure. Well, I think that wraps up our episode. So let us know what you guys think about our GMing, how much you hate it, as I know you're going to hate it. And that's okay, because honestly, we're just making some stuff up, so who gives a crap? So make sure to
if the teams do,
if you like our ideas, hire us, please.
Yeah, right. Dear Calgary Flames, please do this. Also, make this jersey full time. That would be like my next move. Would be bring Blasty back full time.
There's so much other stuff we could talk about, but we're just running at the end of the time, and Ryan's texting me all angry about the show length, so I don't want to push it too far already.
Like a timer where he tilts over and the sand's kind of dripping down the hourglass.
Just tapping his Maple Leaf pen angrily. I don't have to explain it to you. You guys get it. You've all seen it on the show. Okay. All right, well, with that, I'm Barron.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Sunjay.
This has been Delayed Offside. Thank you for listening. Like, click, subscribe, tell your friends, comment on the stuff, and just stay awesome as you always are. See you guys. Delayed Offside.